Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another comparison video. And yeah, I don't do these that often, but because I get to review so many guns, inevitably people ask me, which is better, gun A or gun B? Or how do these two guns compare? If you could only have one, which one would you get? And one of my most popular videos is a video where I compare the B&T APC with the B&T GHM. And I have something very similar on the table today. I was recently able to review the B&T APC9-SD and the B&T SPC9-SD. Both of these have a very similar philosophy of use, price point, and both are integrally suppressed. So I thought this would be a good time to compare and contrast the two and give you guys as much information so you can make an informed choice if you're in the market for one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera, and we're going to talk about different aspects of these guns, also show you some range footage and really see how they compare, and in the end I'll give you guys my personal opinion and final thoughts. To begin this comparison video, I thought I would start off with something that is very subjective, and that is the aesthetics of these guns. Both of them are built to very high standards. They're made by the same company. Functionally, they're very similar, and they take many of the same accessories and parts like the lower receivers. However, they do look very different, and I think the looks of a firearm are really important, especially on the civilian side of things, because if you like the way a gun looks, you're more likely to take it out of the safe, take it to the range, shoot it, and train with it. But also, these are very expensive guns. And while the looks may not be as important to you as other people, if you're only in the market to buy one, aren't you going to want to buy the gun that you think looks the best? So I wanted to show you the differences between these two. And we're going to start off with just the basics of them because both of these guns are very modular. We're just going to talk about the receivers and the suppressors. And let's start with the APC, or the Advanced Police Carbine. This is a very simplistic design. The receiver is kind of blocky. It has flat sides to it. And for me, this reflects the philosophy of the mechanics of a submachine gun. Many times they're just direct blowback, simple operation. You don't need a lot of bells and whistles and frills to the receiver. This looks like it belongs in the arsenals of police and militaries around the world. It just has a really cool look to it, kind of industrial, but very basic. Now let's take a look at the SPC. And I can only speculate, but I think this gun was designed more for the American market and people that like AR-15s, because the receiver is a little bit more round. You have more cutouts in it. It looks a little bit more fancy and complex, even though mechanically it's pretty much the same. And I think they're going for that aesthetic look. So for people that like AR-15s but might be in the market for a Swiss subgun, they wanted to give people that option. Now, when it comes to the suppressors, both of these guns are integrally suppressed, which means that the suppressor goes all the way up to the receiver and goes over the barrel and under the handguard. And the SPC does not look like a typical SD gun. It looks like this suppressor is simply mounted to the end of the barrel, but it is not. But this is going to expose a lot of this suppressor to the open air, and of course these get really hot when you're using them. Now if we take a look at the APC, this looks way more like an HK-MP5-SD, where you have this suppressor completely circled by the handguard. Very little of the suppressor sticks out, and I think that has the better look and the better functionality, especially when it comes to protecting the suppressor. And so I think, once again, this is the better of the two looks. So even though this is a very qualitative choice, if I had to pick one of these, I'm going to go with the APC. For me, it has the right look, for a military or police gun, and I love the way the suppressor is mounted under the handguard. But I can also see why some people are going to love the SPC because it looks a little bit more fancy, and they just might like the look of the way this suppressor is mounted with the shorter handguard. But for me personally, the APC wins when it comes to aesthetics. So now let's talk about the manual of arms of these two firearms, and in many ways they're very, very similar. We have an MP5 style charging handle which can be ambidextrous or move from side to side. We have very similar lower receivers. In fact, these lower receivers are interchangeable. This one is set up to take Glock mags, and the APC right now is set up to take B&T mags, but they have the same safety selector switch, bolt release, and magazine release. It just might be in different places because of the magazine design. But one of these guns has something the other does not, and that's going to be the SPC with a charging handle here on the back. And this is very reminiscent of an AR-15. And I mentioned I thought this gun was designed more for the American market and for AR-15 shooters. And so if you like to charge your firearm or a subgun using a charging handle in the back, you might like the SPC. It does give you that extra option, but you don't have to use this, and you can simply charge the weapon and use the weapon like the APC. Personally, I like the simplicity of the APC when it comes to this. It reminds me of the HK MP5, but you definitely have to give credit to the SPC because you have that extra charging handle, and that's going to give people more options. So when it comes to the manual of arms, I clearly think the SPC is the winner. So now let's move to the rear of the gun and talk about braces or stocks. And this is one of the things I love about B&T is you have so many different options, from telescoping stocks to folding stocks to stocks that do both, and I think they even have fixed stock options. Let's take a look at the APC first. This is the B&T MBT stock. It is folding and telescoping and has a cheek riser. And if you wanted to, you can easily take this off, put on a telescoping stock or brace or just a folding stock. You have so many different options with this design. They are very easy to change out. But the SPC is different. It has what I think is a problem. I will extend this telescoping stock out, and you'll notice it has a buffer tube, very much like an AR-15. And that is because the bolt design of this has a hydraulic buffer that moves in and out of this tube. And because this tube is here, it cannot be folded out of the way. That is going to limit your stock options. You can't put on an MBT stock. You can't put on a folding stock. You are pretty much stuck with a telescoping one. Now, I personally love these stocks. These are honestly my favorite, so this doesn't bother me as much, but I know it will bother other people. So if you don't like telescoping stocks or braces, the SPC might not be the one for you. And this receiver extension or buffer tube adds quite a bit of length to this receiver and limits your options. So when it comes to stocks or braces, there is a clear winner in my opinion, and that's going to be the APC. So the next thing I want to discuss in comparing these two firearms is the accuracy. And it's important to mention that the accuracy of these guns is different than the shootability of these guns or the ergonomics. Both of these firearms use exactly the same lower receivers. They have the same trigger packs. They're of comparable weight and comparable length. So when it comes to how they feel in your shoulder, they're almost identical. The only differences are going to be which stocks you decide to put on on them. But when it comes to their shootability, they're almost exactly the same. Now, when I did the range reports on these two firearms, I shot them one day apart. So it was pretty close when it comes to time frame. So I think that I was able to shoot these pretty much side by side. So I want to show you footage of both of these guns at various distances and shooting them also fast and with a quick mag change, and to show you the accuracy results that I got from both of these firearms. I want to show you if these shot the same, if they shot different, and if they shot a little bit different, why I think that's the case. So let me show you that range footage, and then we'll talk about it. So I hope you can see that both of these firearms are exceptionally accurate. Now when it comes to 10 yards, both of these guns pretty much shoot the same. They're shooting holes through holes. Now when it comes to the 25-yard range test, I kind of feel like the APC was just a little bit better. The SPC was still very accurate for me. Now when it came to shooting this gun fast, I definitely think the APC had the SPC beat. It might just be the longer handguard, but also the APC has a longer barrel under this handguard where the suppressor goes over it. So does that translate into better bullet stability? I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of feel like the APC shoots a little bit better quickly, and I feel like if these guns would have been in full auto, the APC would be a little bit easier to keep on target. So both of these guns pretty much get a 5 out of 5 star rating when it comes to accuracy, but I feel like the APC beats out the SPC by just a little bit. And so the last thing that I want to compare and contrast about these two firearms is their suppression capability. These are both SD models and are integrally suppressed. And so I took the suppressors out of these guns to show you the differences. Here is the suppressor of the SPC, and I told you it is a little bit oddly shaped. We have most of the body of the suppressor out here, but then we have this thinner portion which goes underneath the handguard. Now, when it comes to the APC suppressor design, as you can see, it has a much bigger volume. They're essentially the same length, but when it comes to the actual diameter of the tube, this is consistent and much bigger. And if you know much about suppressors, you know that what really matters is the volume of a suppressor, almost as much as the baffle stack design. So I'm going to go back to the range and I'm going to show you some shooting footage side by side of both of these guns. Now, I do not have a camera that is designed to pick up the minute differences between suppressors. I don't have a decibel meter, but I will tell you my personal thoughts after shooting both of these after I show you that footage. But understand, I believe the APC suppressor is probably going to be a little bit better than the SPC. But let's go back to the range, let's listen to the sound and see if we can hear a difference. Now, after shooting these at the range, I believe both of these firearms do a great job in slowing the supersonic projectiles down to subsonic velocities. When I was shooting these, I was not able to hear any of the supersonic cracks that you normally would hear if you simply had a suppressor attached to the end of the barrel. These integrally suppressed firearms vent gas from the barrel into the body of the suppressor before it actually goes through the baffle stack. And so if you're shooting 115 grain supersonic ammunition through this, it actually is going to slow the velocity down and make both of these firearms a lot softer. Now, shooting these side by side, I can hear a difference, but it's very, very slight, and it has to do more with the tone than the suppression. When it comes to the APC, I feel like this suppressor does a much better job at lowering the pitch. The pitch of the SPC suppressor seemed to be more in the high range. Now, sometimes what people don't understand when it comes to suppression, that what almost matters more than the decibel reduction is the tone. If the tone of a suppressor is lower, it's going to sound softer to your ear. And I believe the APC suppressor does a much better job at that. But that would be expected because of the volume internally of the suppressor as compared to the one for the SPC. Both suppressors work really well. I can definitely tell you that these would be hearing safe, and they do a great job at lowering the velocities of the projectiles to subsonic. However, when it comes to the tone, I definitely think the APC has the SPC beat. And that's my comparisons between the B&T APC9-SD and the B&T SPC9-SD. And hopefully you can tell that both of these firearms are of exceptional quality. They're both very accurate. They're a lot of fun to shoot, and they suppress really, really well. They are both outstanding guns. And if you're looking at both of them, I can definitely see why it would be a hard choice. But the whole reason I made this video is because people are going to ask, if you could only have one, which one would it be? Which is the better gun? Which would you recommend? Well, for me, there's one gun that stands out a little bit above the other, and that's going to be the APC9-SD. It's B&T's older design, and I really feel like they just got it right from the beginning. I like the way this gun looks. I think it suppresses better, and I definitely think it's more accurate. But you definitely can't go wrong with the SPC9-SD. It's a fantastic gun. I think they just made a few changes to appease people that wanted some design changes to the APC. I think it's very accurate, it's a lot of fun to shoot, and it definitely has a place in your collection if you just like the way this one looks a little bit better. You really can't go wrong. This is like having a discussion on whether or not you want a juicy steak or a juicy steak topped with sauteed mushrooms. Both are great. It's just personal opinion and personal preference. But once again, if I had to choose one, the APC comes out on top. So what do you guys think? Was this a good comparison? Do you like both of these guns? Do you agree with my thoughts and opinions? I would love to know in the comment section below. So I hope this video helps somebody in the future. And, as always, thanks for watching.